Hello everyone, my name is Bill Griffin. Welcome to the Different Take podcast. This is part 2 of subject regarding the 2020 election and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's involvement. And since then, his words and actions. So picking up where I left off, there was a phone call on January 2nd, 2021 between Raffensperger and Trump, which was recorded. Raffensperger says he doesn't know how it got recorded or how it got released to the public, but it's my understanding. He had an ample opportunity to make that very clear, and I don't know that he ever had, but he certainly didn't at the time on January 4th when he was doing his rounds. At the time, he claimed it was a private conversation. He expected it was man to man. He didn't know it was being recorded, and that he would not have released this. Even though he said he didn't know who released it, he said he would not have released it. But he was happy that it was released. I should say that. He's a slippery fellow. He released the phone call because Trump tweeted. Shocking. Trump tweeted, he's shocked, dismayed. He'd already tweeted several times regarding and talked publicly about Raffensperger, asked him to resign and all sorts of things. But he claims that Trump was throwing out information that wasn't true. Well, that's what he claimed. He was the reason he was happy that this was released to the public. And I suppose since he didn't know, he would have expressed, if Trump hadn't tweeted, he would have expressed great remorse that this was released to the public. Nobody is going to buy that. In November 2nd, 2021, The Hill, there's an article in The Hill where he's quoted regarding the phone call with Trump. Quote, I felt then and still believe today that this was a threat, end quote. Okay, so if you believed it was a threat, and then you sure spent a lot of time talking about the disagreeing with the information, not the threat, but the information. So you can all go back and read this and let me know if this is if I'm off base, but it sure doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And anyhow, the reason for this article is he's doing rounds because he is the author of this book, which, as I said on the last episode, that the title "Integrity Counts" is a red flag for me. If someone has to tell me that integrity counts, then I have to think maybe they think that it doesn't really count. There's an acronym that's maybe not a lot of people aware of. It's called FIGJAM, FIGJAM. It stands for, and I've done very well in this on this channel in the episodes, not using expletives, but you can imagine what the first letter stands for. F, I'm good, just ask me. That is, I think, what would be appropriate. Sometimes you have nicknames, but you don't know you have them, and that's probably a nickname that would be fitting for Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger. By the way, nobody will read this book. It's coffee table sort of purchase. People that hate Trump would buy a hardcover copy. Nobody's going to download the thing and read it. They're going to put it in a prominent place in their office or home where someone walk in, ask them about it, and they get a chance to rail against about President Trump. So this is for people that just hate Trump. So I think Raffensperger could have put just nothing but blank pages and it would have sold. We'll put a lot of effort into it. So what has happened this year regarding all of these complaints of malfeasance and poor management or administration of the election in 2020, November 2020? So there's recently a report from Newsmax, and I'm focusing on Raffensperger's words in this video. I'm not talking about what anybody else says, but Raffensperger and to some inconsistencies. So in a USA Today article right after the election of November, he says, the problems with the Fulton County are behind us. But here on June 30th, 2021, here's this report. Raffensperger's hand-picked election monitor Carter Jones recently released a 29-page report on the Atlanta Counting Center rebuked by the Trump campaign. What he said was, it's all this mismanagement. It goes on. The positive note was that he did not see illegality or ballot stuffing, but all that mismanagement, dysfunction, what it does, it creates voter trust, and it really lends itself to conspiracy theories. So it needs to be fixed. It's our largest county. And you know, people that live in Fulton County, like I do, I'm tired of it. But so is everyone else who lives in the other 158 counties. So are the problems really behind us with Fulton County? He claims they were, and he was responsible for cleaning up the mess, and now he says he's sick of it. This report goes over several, many instances, different abnormalities and that sort of thing. Actually, prior to that, there's a tweet which I showed in the previous part one that Raffensperger is complaining about chain of custody as far as mail-in ballots in Fulton County regarding the ballot drop boxes, the mail-in ballot drop boxes, and he was complaining about chain of custody. Well, on top of that, in July 15th, 2021, this is Raffensperger. This is from the Washington Examiner, July 15th, 2021, 8 months after the election. Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger demanded the firing of two high-profile election officials in Fulton County after it was revealed a number of ballots were double counted during the 2020 presidential election. Well, you might remember in part one, I spoke of during the primary, there was a CNN article which quoted Raffensperger as saying 1,000 people double voted in the primary, and if they were double counted, then the system wasn't very good, was it? So Raffensperger is urging Rick Barron and Ralph Jones, urging local officials to terminate both Rick Barron and Ralph Jones, registration chief, for continued failures. Earlier in the week, it was revealed that nearly 200 absentee ballots were scanned twice after digital images of the paperwork were made public. So, again, I'm saying everything's hunky-dory, and now we're finding out later that even he's saying it's not hunky-dory. Also think it's interesting that in the phone call, Donald Trump, and on national television, he claimed there were two dead voters, only two, out of a state of how many people voted? 6 million people or something like that. Population of 10 million people, and only two dead people voted. I don't understand how you could possibly know that. But since he said that, he's going to make sure that it didn't come out that there were more than that if he can possibly do so. On that question, for example, in the state of Texas, there's a report that just came out where there were, they did an audit, and they say that 224 400,000 voter registrations for deceased voters were purged from the state's rolls. And they also found 67 people, dead voters. And this was sent out on December 31, 2021. John B. Scott, Secretary of State, the state of Texas. So that's pretty easy to look up. So during the course of 2021, there's a group, it's called True the Vote, and they delivered to the Secretary of State's office research and analysis, submitting 3 complaints. This isn't about that. It's about Raffensperger's response. So, in essence, the third party reviews video evidence, submits it to the Secretary of State, and Raffensperger, as you could see, was acknowledging that his office was going to look at this. The problem is quite obviously, is the state has the video evidence, the general and the runoff that was held, the Senate runoff that was held in January, and the general election held in November. The state has the evidence, but it takes, why didn't they investigate this? Why is Raffensperger insisting that the 2020 election was hunky-dory in November, wrote a book about it, ostensibly claiming that, and that's just hard to believe that people would trust someone, Raffensperger, to this job. I mean, there's no wonder there's calls for him to resign, because why is a third party doing this? The state should have done this. He should be independent. His job isn't, he's not the only person in the government. He's not completely and totally responsible for every action of every election official. He can be, if he truly wants to be the umpire, then you call out the people that made mistakes and you do the investigations. But he did not do this. He ignored these. This isn't new. People were saying this was happening all along. So we'll see what happens. I don't expect much to come of it, because Raffensperger is basically investigating himself, if you think about it. So when you combine the blatant lies regarding the release of this phone call, the USA Today article, the CNN report where double voters were counted last year, on top of this year, he's saying we're sick of the mess in Fulton County, but earlier in the USA Today article, he says we've got all that past us. And then this 27-page report, along with the ballot harvesting business, you've got a complete mess. I just don't think he's an honest person. I just really don't. I'm hesitant to say this, because you want to give people the benefit of doubt, but there's too many things that he said and done that just do not add up. That is Brad Raffensperger. So I sense I'm just scratching the surface. I believe that's in his reelection. I just don't see Democrats dumping whatever candidate they have to go in with Raffensperger. I don't think they're necessarily going to think that they're any better off. He's not popular at all with Republicans. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. In fact, he did not. I'd be surprised if he ever attended a Republican Party meeting or did any speeches or that sort of thing. I don't like his chances in the reelection or of getting reelected. All that being said, for me personally, the purpose of an election is to reflect the true will of the people. And what has happened over time is we've gotten farther and farther away from being able to truly reflect what people want. It used to be that you went into a voting booth, you closed a curtain, you had complete anonymity. Nobody in the world could know who you voted for. Even if you took a photo of your selections, you'd have different levers you'd pull and a punch paper. And when you pulled that lever, that to open the curtain, that sent you that you're done. That's your vote, and the levers would reset. So even if you took a photo of how you had the lever situated, it wouldn't matter because as soon as you pulled, they're done. So you're voting in confidence. I think that's critical, and I've done another episode and I talked about this. That is one key reason that I tend to have a lot of doubt that the election in 2020 really reflected the will of the people for that reason and that reason alone. And there are other reasons. I've gone through them that might give you doubt and pause. That's a big reason. So I wrote the Secretary of State and sent him a Federal Express because, to make sure that there was a record that had gotten there. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I get an answer. I didn't get an answer for quite some time. And two, I probably called a couple times between November 2020 and to just inquire, or should I expect an answer? And then eventually, yes, I got an answer. And this is what I got. Last fall, an undated letter, not real professional, get an undated letter, but at any rate, it's my question was involved voter secrecy. So I received this letter, and the answer was, quote, voter secrecy is crucial. This is directly from the letter, quote, voter secrecy is crucial. However, voting absentee by mail no way jeopardizes the confidentiality of the vote. This is a problem with politicians and bureaucrats, as they think in such a just a tunnel vision. They're only thinking about the voter secrecy that occurs from the standpoint of the state. However you get it, you get a ballot in the mail. Okay, and then if there's that person may be apathetic about voting and agnostic. They just don't care. They don't follow what's going on in politics, and then maybe they do. Either regardless, someone else in the household is a big Trump supporter, or they hate Trump, and they convince, coerce, intimidate, cajole other people to vote the way that they want them to vote, and they watch them vote. So this line is obviously only from the standpoint of the state. It's a very foolish comment. Well, at the bottom of the letter, I got an invitation to call a gentleman named Robert Centers. So there's a number to call Robert Centers with the Secretary of State's office. And I took some notes from that phone call. So I explained this to Mr. Centers, what the letter said, how the letter was incorrect, because it said that the voter does have confidentiality when there's no way that the state can there's no way that the state can ensure that each voter votes confidentially with a mail-in ballot. It's a ridiculous premise. He likes to interrupt pretty frequently, but he interrupted with that as factual before I even had an opportunity to explain the standpoint of when the voter receives the mail ballot, they're not guaranteed secrecy. He responded with, well, there's no evidence that a voter, that would make any impact on the election, as if that makes any difference at all. That has nothing to do with the point. It doesn't matter what the result is. It's a bad thing to intimidate people for their votes, in my opinion. He does not share this opinion, and to be fair, he didn't express this as Mr. Raffensperger or the state's position, but his personal opinion was that he claimed to be a libertarian, and that people ought to be able to buy and sell their votes just like any other commodity. I believe votes are commodities, that according to him, he believes that, I should say, and that somebody should be able to sell their vote if they wish. I responded with that he was an expletive crazy, a bat expletive crazy was my exact words. He didn't argue with me after that, but it's neither here nor there. The point is, the state is looking at this from what, and politicians and the left-wing media, and Democrats, they're looking at these voting processes as being favorable to them. And I don't think it is. I think politicians are pliable. So what you have is this idea where Republicans are saying, well, it's going to be easier to vote and harder to cheat. The two ideas they're complete opposite. The easier it is to vote, the easier and easier it will be to cheat. Depending on what your term cheat is. If you're in the Robert Center's camp where everything goes, doesn't matter, I think that's a bad place for society, and I don't think it reflects what people want. You can have a different opinion about this, but the bottom line is, for me, I don't know who won the election in November 2020. I don't contend that I know Trump won. I don't contend that I know Biden. Biden people can't, or the Trump people can't know who won with actual evidence. I don't think it will ever know who really won. So my different take is, unlike the media will portray people that believe Trump won, we believe Biden won, I don't believe we know who won. Now my definition is a little bit different from other people, but aside from that, with just the sheer numbers of the votes and all of the problems that's come to light, I don't think anyone will ever know who won that election. And that's my different take on the November 2020 election and my thoughts on our Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, analysis of what, and like I said, I think I'm scratching the surface. But I really appreciate you listening. Please check out our website and the various platforms that we're on. And also, if you have any comments, I would love to hear them. Thank you very much.